Hello and welcome back to 365 Days with mxmtoon, but with a twist. I'm Maya, a singer, songwriter, video maker, and Oakland native. I'm also a huge fan of history. I love untold stories, gross facts, hidden secrets, anything weird, dark, and funky from the past. This month, we have some very special episodes. Each week, one of my friends will be taking over the podcast to share their favorite deep cuts with you. This week, we have a host who is a fellow singer-songwriter and fellow ukulele lover, Dodie. Take it away, Dodie.
It's 365 with Dodie. New facts every day, so don't leave too soon. I'm gonna teach you stuff, no it won't be tough. Gonna go a year till you've had enough. It's 365 with Dodie. Today, in 1983, an act of magic happened, but only a few people were around to witness it in person. On Friday, April the 8th, 1983, magician David Copperfield changed history by making the 305-foot-tall, £350,000 Statue of Liberty disappear. Well, more technically, he made it look like the Statue of Liberty disappeared. Yes, only about 20 people saw Copperfield's illusion live and in person, but they weren't the only ones. The Statue of Liberty illusion was part of the popular magician's TV special, The Magic of David Copperfield 5, The Statue of Liberty Disappears, made even more impressive by a helicopter giving an aerial view of the spectacle. Copperfield had his audience sit 200 feet away from the statue and surrounded the statue by a ring of lights. In a video narrated by Copperfield, he explains the plan was to raise a large sheet between the audience and the statue, shielding the statue from view. Copperfield adds that he would shine searchlights into the spot where the statue was and use radar and instant film photos to help emphasize the fact that it had indeed vanished. In the TV special, dramatic, operatic music plays while Copperfield gestures theatrically. The sheet covering the statue slowly rises, and voila! Lady Liberty is no more. Some of the people who watched the spectacle live were interviewed for the special, and all of them expressed amazement at what they had just witnessed. If I was at home watching it on TV, I would be a little skeptical, but I was here, and it was there, and now it's not there, one man said. In reality, this was a large-scale act of sleight of hand. Copperfield and his team had constructed 2 towers that flanked the statue, which helped support the big curtain that covered the statue before it vanished. But the towers weren't only there to help raise the curtain, they also helped narrow the audience's perspective, making it so they could only see the statue between the towers. While the curtain was covering the tower, the platform the audience was sitting on moved subtly enough to hide the Statue of Liberty behind one of the towers without the audience noticing. Lighting also played a big role here. A ring of bright lights had been illuminating the statue, but when it disappeared, those lights got switched off, and a different ring of lights got turned on. This presumably made it harder for the audience to perceive the statue had not disappeared, but simply moved out of sight. The magician said that in making the Statue of Liberty disappear, he wanted people to see visually liberty gone and discuss how we take freedom for granted and how lucky we are to have it. Copperfield had to get his own form of liberty in order to perform the illusion in the first place. He explains that he went to the Parks Department, who denied his request out of concern for the statue's safety. Eventually, due to his fame and experience performing at Ford's Theatre in Washington, D.C., he went to then-President Ronald Reagan to ask him directly if he could perform the illusion using the statue. Reagan, obviously, said yes. The Statue of Liberty disappearing act was far from Copperfield's only big trick. The magician's other awe-inspiring acts included appearing to walk through the Great Wall of China and various escape-based stunts like surviving after being chained to a chair and dropped down Niagara Falls, or breaking out of notorious San Francisco-based prison Alcatraz. In that episode, Copperfield chose to break out of Alcatraz because it was the most notorious maximum security prison located on an isolated island. The building itself was no longer housing prisoners by the time he staged the stunt, in which he got out of a straitjacket in under 2 minutes and used coins to pick the cell door, and then escaped via helicopter wearing a guard uniform. Forbes once described him as the most commercially successful magician in history, which makes sense considering he's won 21 Emmy Awards, 11 Guinness World Records, and a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He's still around to this day. Las Vegas Weekly just announced that Copperfield would be returning to his headline show at the MGM Grand on the Las Vegas Strip, performing in the aptly titled David Copperfield Theatre. The Statue of Liberty illusion has earned a place in history as one of Copperfield's greatest achievements. It's also had a cultural impact. In 2016, it was referenced in an episode of the TV show The Americans, appropriately titled The Magic of David Copperfield V, The Statue of Liberty Disappears. Though Copperfield was the one dazzling audiences with his illusion, he didn't act alone. He worked with director Frank Capra, who made the classic It's a Wonderful Life, to develop the script. Capra wasn't the only one. Jim Steinmeier, a longtime illusion developer and effects designer, initially proposed the concept to Copperfield, and Don Wayne served as Copperfield's magic consultant and director. Steinmeier has collaborated with many other magicians and illusionists, including Siegfried and Roy and the Ringling Brothers, and Wayne has made magic for everyone from Copperfield to Britney Spears and Cher. It just goes to show you that magic is a form of live performance, and in addition to the performer, there's always someone making magic behind the scenes. In this case, literal magic. Now we're going to hear from an awesome music guest. I love this girl. She's such a pop star. Violet Skies, tell us about your April day.
April the 8th, 2019 was a bit of a life-changing day for me. I was supporting Leon, an amazing Swedish artist, live at her headline show in London. And I had written, with a good friend of mine, Charlie McLean, a single for Leon she was singing live. So it was kind of a momentous moment. Charlie and I have been running this all-female writing camp called She Writes that Leon had been at, and the two of us wrote with her. And she chose that song and added it totally last minute to the album. And then I was watching her sing it live in London, and seeing the crowd sing it back to her was super overwhelming. But also, as an artist, I'd started releasing my own music again after a break, writing for other people. And I was supporting her. So the whole night was so strange. There was a song of mine called I'll Buy a House, which is about buying a house with the money you made from the sad songs you wrote about someone. And it was the final song in my set. I'd never sung it live before up to that point. It was completely unreleased. And the audience sang it back to me. It was just such a strange night, really overwhelming, really emotional, watching kind of my career as a songwriter, my career as an artist, and my career kind of working with women in music and everything we'd done with She Writes all come together in a singular night. Yeah, April, that night kind of set the tone and how I feel about my career ever since, and really gave me confidence that it was possible to do all three, and that creativity has no limits. So yeah, I think about that night really fondly and think about it as the beginning of lots of really amazing avenues for me.
So for the final section of this show, I'm going to go back in time and have a little look at what I was doing on this date, April the 8th. So from my camera roll, I can tell that on this day, an entire year ago, I was writing a 20-second song to accompany you when you wash your hands. Everyone remember those songs? Everyone was singing the alphabet? Or Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? Not me. I wrote my own. And it was really silly. Really fun. It's the whistling washing song. Wash your hands and whistle along. If you can't do both, it hurts your head. Just concentrate on washing instead. Dibbly doo. Scrubbity scrub. Whistling while we rubbity rub. Hands are clean and joy was found. Whistling makes the world go round. 5 stars, 10 out of 10. Would whistle and wash again. Thank you for listening, and see you tomorrow. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow at 365 Days mxmtoon on your preferred social media platforms. Also follow me at dodie. Or don't. Bye. It's 365 with Dodie. New facts every day, so don't leave too soon. I'm gonna teach you stuff, no it won't be tough. Gonna go a year till you've had enough. It's